Hello and welcome to Daily on Defense Monday Briefing. I'm Dave Brown, and with me is Jamie McIntyre and Jacqueline Klimas. A lot of us woke up to the news this morning that the much ballyhooed, long-awaited offensive to retake Mosul from ISIS has already begun. So what are some of the things that people are talking about now, even in the early stages?
Well, the first thing I think to remember is that, we've seen this model before with both Ramadi and Fallujah, where these offensives, they've been planned for months. They sort of start very methodically, but it seems pretty clear that the Iraqi forces have amassed enough manpower and firepower. They have a vast numerical superiority, and they will no doubt liberate Mosul, whether it's in the next week or the next month or the next month and a half. It's going to happen. The big question, of course, is that the liberation of Mosul and even the defeat of ISIS in Iraq is not the defeat of ISIS writ large. Right. So the big question is what comes next, both with Mosul, where they're going to have to worry about how they administer and rebuild this city. They still have all the underlying factional issues in Iraqi society, and then also what to do about Syria, where they don't have the same kind of cooperation on the ground. So this is going to be a big turning point for Iraq, but it doesn't necessarily mean that ISIL is going to be defeated.
Right, and the thing that makes me curious is after we pulled out of Iraq, there was all the discussion about the status of forces agreement. Well, we're back, and we appear to have what looks like sort of a handshake agreement with the government in Baghdad. What sort of issues should people be talking about when it comes to U.S. military footprint in that country?
Well, the U.S. is insistent now that it has an exchange of papers, diplomatic papers with Iraq, and because Iraq has invited the U.S. troops back in, that they're protected from any sort of legal problems. It does sort of undercut the argument of the Obama administration that the U.S. couldn't leave troops in Iraq before because they didn't have a status of forces agreement. We have 5,000 troops there now without a status of forces agreement, just as you said, a kind of handshake agreement.
Right, and that's the sort of thing that's been coming up in the debates. And this week we are looking at the very final debate of this very interesting presidential election season. Wednesday night, they've already released all the topics they're going to talk about. One of them is foreign hotspots. Jacqueline, what do you expect to be coming up in that one?
Based on what they've talked about in previous debates, I wouldn't expect us to hear anything new, any sort of concrete plans. But in past debates, Clinton has attacked Donald Trump for his cozy relationship with Vladimir Putin. Clinton has said repeatedly that she wouldn't put any ground troops in Syria. And Trump has criticized Hillary for revealing any sort of plan and kind of questioned why plans need to be revealed, why we're tipping off the enemy. So I would expect to hear a lot of the same things.
And one of the things that came up last time around is actually not coming to fruition, but actually playing out. Trump has gone after the administration for discussing the Mosul operation in such detail. And it seemed like for a while it was the operation that was always around the corner. What has been his actual criticism, and what are some people telling you about what is the utility of actually discussing these campaigns before they happen?
Trump has basically just said that he sees this as tipping off the enemy and kind of wondering why we would give anyone a heads up that we're coming, that we should be discussing these operations once they're done and we've won them. But experts have told me that it's helpful to allow civilians to escape. Of course, in Mosul, ISIS is not allowing them to escape, so the people who are there are kind of stuck there. And that it can be useful in other ways, but even liberal think tank people have said that Trump is sort of right in this sense, that there may not be a lot of use to giving a heads up in the Mosul operation.
But in some ways it's a little silly because it's not like you can amass thousands of troops
right.
encircle. You can't declare, we're going to defeat ISIS and we're going to run them out of Mosul and then pretend that you're not planning a big invasion. So
right.
It's kind of hard to hide.
This isn't exactly the bin Laden raid that they're doing over there right now. The other big thing that's been happening is WikiLeaks. Every day, sometimes twice a day, more of these emails are being released. Jamie, you've been looking through some of them. And
Clinton is talking about the debate over arming the rebels in Syria and whether that would have made a difference. She argues that she was in favor of that, but she was overruled. But she also concedes that the counter-arguments were kind of strong. So whether it's about Syria or Kim Jong-un and what's going on with China and North Korea, or how she views Vladimir Putin, you can kind of look at where her head was at 3 years ago and sort of see how that judgment weighs against what actually happened, what history actually shows.
Sure, and this week, obviously, there's the big cyber conference that's going to be happening on Tuesday. Jacqueline, talk a little bit about that and some sort of the interesting situation that's come up between the speakers.
So FedScoop is holding Fed Talks 2016 in DC, which is a day-long cyber conference. There's a double Mike Rogers panel. We have Admiral Mike Rogers, the head of Cyber Command, and Mike Rogers, the former Michigan representative, are going to be on a panel together talking about cybersecurity.
That's so unusual, because what are the chances two people would be named Mike Rogers? Actually, I guess it's kind of a common.
Yeah.
We also have the chief information officers from the CIA and Department of Homeland Security are going to be talking about the future of cybersecurity. So that's a day-long thing that'll be going on, all focused on cyber.
Yeah, I think during that panel it's going to be, Admiral, what do you think? What about you, Congressman?
Right.
And of course, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the video that came out early Friday morning when Defense Secretary Ash Carter had a pretty hard-hitting interview with Seth Meyers on Late Night. Let's have a look.
Can I try to guess the nuclear codes?
Sure.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
No. We're going to need to change the nuclear codes. So this is the hall where we have the portraits of all the secretaries of defense, right back to the very beginning. Up here, my portrait.
Oh, great.
Come on, take a look.
You posed for that one?
Sure.
Okay.
Who knew he could be that funny?
Yeah, both of you have spent some time traveling with the Secretary. This isn't exactly how he normally comes off when he's speaking to world leaders and
If
reporters.
somebody said, who's the funniest member of the cabinet, probably Ash Carter would not have been the first name that came to mind. Although now, he might be.
Well, that's great. And that's it for us this week. Make sure you stay with WashingtonExaminer.com for developments throughout the week and sign up for our newsletter at dailyondefense.com.